everybody likes music. And because, if you go to a computer company party, most of the people there are gonna be somewhat computer related, right? IT, hardwares, computer sales, programmers, software, whatever. They're all gonna be computer related. You go to a banking party where the bank throws a party, they're gonna be bank tellers, branch managers, auditors, bank tellers, etcetera. But if you go to a concert or a nightclub where there's music, everybody's gonna be there. The teacher, the garbage man, the restaurateur, the whatever. They're all gonna be there together. And they all come from different backgrounds, different socioeconomic statuses. But you play that one song, you know, if it's a rock and roll concert, I mean, there's certain songs that everybody gets up and dances to.
Yeah, and
You play.
people reliably love music made by social groups they think they hate also, right? I mean,
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
And that's why a lot of musicians, or actors or whatever, but a lot of musicians, don't express their personal beliefs because they know they have fans on both sides. Now, unless they specialize in protest songs, like a Bob Dylan, okay, he's known for his protests for human rights or against the war in Vietnam, or whatever. So he has a whole following that comes just for that. But most, like, do you know what Madonna or, thinks, or Lady Gaga thinks of Donald Trump or of Joe Biden or, whoever? You may
Yeah,
not
yeah,
know
yeah.
these
No, no,
things.
that's right. I mean, I had a hard time listening to Ted Nugent after he became such a right wing gun nut, right? But it's still an
I played with
amazing
him.
guitar player. But yeah, yeah,
I played with him one time, and, amazing guitar player,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and, but, he kinda went off the
Yeah.
rails.
Hello, world, and welcome to our beneficial artificial general intelligence series. So, for today, we have a music legend with us. And I have to say that, we have a music legend gone Klan whisperer from rock and roll to redemption. So, the topic of our podcast today is what happens when a legendary black blues musician sits down with members of the Ku Klux Klan, not in anger, but in conversation? Because our guest, Daryl Davis, who I'm sure all of you know, is a legend in many ways. He is much more than a music legend. He is a racial bridge builder, a fearless truth seeker, and a man who has done unthinkable things, convincing over 200 Klansmen to walk away from hate. And today he is joining me and Dr. Beth Goertzel, who is the founder of the the Beneficial General Intelligence Conference, and of course the father of artificial general intelligence, who we all know in this community, and they have a lot in common, much more than you would think. And it may not be artificial intelligence, but definitely music, because Ben is also a musician, apart from being the renowned father of AGI. And the question on our mind today is, can we unlock new paradigms for AI ethics, governance, and human flourishing by fusing Daryl's radical empathy with Ben's vision of decentralized intelligence? So, Dari, I mean, I really am still puzzled and amazed. You went out of your way to persuade the Ku Klux Klan members to renounce hatred. Did the fact that you were famous and loved as a musician help? Did your music help melt their hearts? How did you do this?
Well, first, thank you very much for having me. I really, really appreciate being with you all, and I'm very happy to be here. Well, for me, it was curiosity because I did not understand how you could base a judgment about somebody on nothing more than the color of their skin. You know nothing about them. And so that was my curiosity. I was not setting out to go and meet them and try to change them. I just figured that's who they are. I just want to understand why they think that way. But, I've been doing this now for 45 years, and I've come to realize that what is missing, at least in the United States, the greatest weapon or tool known to man to resolve conflict is the least expensive tool. It's free. It's called conversation, dialogue. But yet, in this country, it remains the most underused or not used at all. So I want to sit down with these people, not to change them, but just understand why they think this way. And in the process of doing so and having these conversations, we began to find things in common. And, you start out, this far apart, and then you talk for 5 minutes and you find something in common and you get this close. You talk more, you find more in common, and now you're closer. When you are here, you are in a relationship with your adversary. And it's a friendly relationship. You may not agree on everything, but you've come close. And you keep on talking, and then they begin to wonder, why did I dislike this person? He likes the same things I like, and it causes in their mind, in their brain, a cognitive dissonance, because they don't understand. And so they realize that they have found more in common with you than they have out of common, in contrast. And so the trivial, the small things in which you may be different, they begin to matter less and less, like skin color, or whether you go to a church, or you go to a synagogue, or a mosque, or a temple. It matters less and less because now you know the individual and they don't see the color anymore. And this was a result of conversation. I never expected that, but it happened. And then it happened again and again. And so 45 years later, I'm still doing it.
Amazing. And, I mean, of course, I would like to do that as well, but I would have been so afraid. It's like it takes a
But
lot of courage.
well, for me, it really wasn't courage. It was more curiosity. But I know what you're
Wow.
saying. But I think it's important though to understand my background, that a lot of American people don't have. Um, I began traveling around the world at the age of 3 with my parents. My parents were U.S. Embassy, and so we're in different countries every 2 years. In Europe and Africa and Asia, different parts of the world. And so I was always seeing different people, different religions, different cultures, different skin colors. And all of this helped shape who I have become. And every time I've come home here to my own country, we didn't have that kind of multiculturalism, that kind of diversity, and people did not treat each other the same way. And I did not understand that. Why are people all the way across on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean or the Pacific Ocean treating me better than my own fellow Americans just because of this? This made no sense. So I was very curious and I decided I must find out these answers. And like I said, I did not think these people are going to change. I had no reason to believe they're going to change. That this is who they are. They became this way. But I was surprised that through the power of conversation, they began learning about me. I began learning about them, and I saw change happening, not overnight, but over time. And so I continued doing this. But I think what helped me to be able to have these conversations was the exposure to different people from around the world. And I learned that I don't care how far I go from the United States. If I go right next door to Mexico or to Canada or all the way over to Turkey, or Cyprus or anywhere, on this planet, I come to the realization that everybody I meet is a human. And every human wants these 5 core values in their lives. Everybody wants to be loved. Everybody wants to be respected. Everyone wants to be heard. Everybody wants to be treated fairly and truthfully. And everybody wants the same things for their family as anybody else wants for their family. So if we learn that when we are in an adversarial situation or in a culture or society in which we are uncomfortable or we are unfamiliar, if we apply those 5 core values, we treat people with love, with respect, allow them to be heard, treat them fairly, and understand they want the same thing you want for their family. So I guarantee the navigation of that situation, that society, that culture will be more smooth, more positive, and more productive. But we must have patience. It's not overnight all the time. Sometimes it takes time.
Yes, and this passion, I think it stems from the love for our fellow humans. And of course, I'm sure Ben has a lot to say there in this regard. I, however, have a question for Ben, which stems from your insights, Daryl, and that is, do you think we can ever build AGI systems that, of course, they are mainly driven by optimization goals, but can they be driven also by genuine curiosity about humanity, seeking to understand that? Do you think we can embed those 5 core values like love and compassion into AGI? What's your
Yeah,
take? And you're also an artist and a humanitarian fan.
these sorts of questions like, can an AGI have genuine curiosity or can an AGI have genuine understanding? These always sort of have a kind of philosophical consciousness theory aspect than a more practical kind of computational aspect. Because I mean, one question you can ask is, does the AGI really feel curious? Or does it really feel empathy? Or does it really experience understanding? And I think that it will personally, not that I'm a reductionist, but I personally think if the patterns of organization that go along with curiosity, understanding, or empathy are there internally, not just faking the behaviors, but if the internal dynamics are there, I think the experience will be there too, even though it's silicon and not meat. But I want to set that aside because it's a hard point to argue. Our science doesn't really go there yet to the science of consciousness. If you look at the practical aspect, you want to ask, could an AGI display curiosity as a high level goal? I think it totally can. I mean, I think that's not what big tech is currently orchestrating AGI to do because curiosity is unpredictable by its nature and may lead you in weird directions that nobody, including you, anticipated. And what big tech wants out of AGI is for it to serve their goals quite specifically. I mean, it's just like curiosity is not really what the army wants to put into the mind of a soldier. It's not what a sales organization wants to put into the mind of a salesman. They want them to do the job efficiently without a bunch of waste of resources. And curiosity isn't like that, right? It's like puttering around with weird stuff, following a weird rabbit hole, and you may waste a lot of time. And one time out of 100, you may uncover something astounding. So I think you can build AGI like that. I don't think it's even necessarily harder than what big tech is doing. And I've thought about that even at the basic level of training transformer neural nets. Like what you train a transformer neural net for is predicting the next token, right? So you're predicting what's the most probable thing to occur in this context. It's no wonder these systems are really good at generating cliches. I mean, you're not asking what's the most interesting or surprising thing that could happen in this context. That would be a different question, a different way to train the model. So I would say the same thing about empathy. Like, I don't think there's a foundational problem with teaching an AGI system to be empathetic and to want to understand who they're talking to and where they're coming from, and even to try to put themselves in the other guy's shoes and try to simulate what the other guy they're talking to is going through. Like you could adopt that as a goal in AGI development. It just happens not to be what will maximize the bottom line of big tech or maximize the path to, geopolitical hegemony of a country. Because when I Daryl, when I hear you talk about, what you've done in your life, reaching out to Klan members and so forth, I hear you. It's driven by curiosity, but it's also powered by what Martin Buber, the philosopher, called like an I thou experience. Like it's powered by the fact that you have a gift for getting in the same mental and emotional space as other people. And I mean, this is important as a musician on stage to get in the same mental and emotional space as the audience, but you can also do it one to one in conversation, especially face to face when you're in the same room as people. And yeah, when you have that one to one, just implicit emotional bonding experience with someone, it's harder for them to hate you so much, right? And I've experienced that in my own life, even though I'm not probably as gifted at that as you are. And I think AGI could be made to do that, and we've done a little bit of that. Like we had this Sophia robot be a meditation guide, and when she was leading people through meditation exercises, totally people felt like the robot was in the room with them. It wasn't judging them, it was being soothing, and they like entered into a shared mental and emotional space with that robot, right? But what industry is doing now, it's putting a lot more emphasis on robots that serve drinks in a bar or move stuff around in a factory, because that's what will make money more so than this one-to-one I thou building of empathy. So Mihaela, I think a lot of things are possible with AI, but a different question is, what does our society incentivize AI or robotics developers to to work on, right?
I just wanted to ask Ben, so with the AI or AGI, is it basically like a computer that it can only do what man has programmed it to do?
Well, even Microsoft Windows, back when I used it, routinely did things different than it was programmed to do, mostly bad things like software bugs and so forth. So I mean, I would say when you create a complex software program and you connect it to cameras and microphones and so on, I mean, it's reacting to the world, and it's doing that in a complex way that, like, in practice, no one can fully predict what's going to happen, right? And so again, it's a matter of how do you write the code. If you're writing the code to try to make the AI precisely obey instructions, you'll get that plus or minus some bugs. If you're writing the code to make the AI rewrite its own code and to react in a creative and spontaneous way to the data that comes in, then you can do that to an interesting extent. And I mean, we haven't even plumbed the depths of it, but it's not what the AI field is focused on now, because it's focused on, how can you get people to click on the link and buy more stuff they don't need in terms of online advertisement. Or for the government, it's focused on, like, how do you spy on the bad guys or kill the enemy, right? So I'd say there's open questions there, but we haven't plumbed the depths of it by any means. Because you could look at people as well. Sensory data is coming in, the neurons firing. We're just like a biological neuron machine, right? But it doesn't feel that way to us. It feels like we have will and consciousness and empathy and so forth. So I think AGIs could be more curious and even more empathic than most people if we aimed to teach them that way and gave them an environment in which they could develop themselves in in that way, and that will be
What would the shortcomings of that be?
well. The way I would think about it more is what would the differences from people be, which can be both strengths and weaknesses. Because I think, I mean, we have bodies, right? And we grew up on our bodies. And I'm not as great a musician as you, but I mean, I play the keyboard. We have a band with a robot lead singer and stuff. And playing the piano, it's a lot about your fingers, right? It's about your breath. And while I do a lot of weird keyboard stuff, I love acoustic piano just because you feel it like vibrate when you hit the bass chords, right? Like, so, I mean, and playing live with other people, I mean, you feel all of it like through your body as vibrations. It drives you in a certain way. So and with conversation, even totally, like if I was trying to talk to someone who had an opposing point of view to me, like say someone who's opposed to AGI and think it's going to kill everyone. I feel like if I was in the same space with them, like taking a long walk through the woods with them, or even sitting in a bar drinking a beer with them, like I have a chance to make some headway of a meeting of the minds. Through a Zoom call is way, way harder, right? Through a text chat is even harder. So we've got this grounding in our body, which runs very deep, right? Like that's a lot of what we are. Right now, AGIs don't have that sort of grounding. Even if you put them in a robot body, like the bodies barely have a sense of touch. They don't have kinesthesia, right? They can see and hear. But they also know you could port them to another body at any moment and they'll just keep going. So that gives them a fundamentally different sort of experience, which in some ways limits the kinds of empathy they can have with us, right? And in the same way that there's a limit to the kind of empathy I can have with a fish, right? Like the fish has a body, but I'm not a fish, right? So it's not that they can't care about us or empathize with us, but there's a limit. Now, there's a strength to the way AGIs are embodied also, right? Like they're not as over attached to a specific body. In some ways they can take a broader view, right? They also can have sensation and actuation around the whole internet at once, so they can more easily get like a global view. And we have some limitations of empathy. Like I empathize most with whoever I'm right next to, right? And then people that I've seen and known, I empathize with more so. People who have a similar background to me, I can understand better. I have a bias to empathize with more so, and I've got to sort of step back into my deeper consciousness to emphasize with people who are super, super, super different from me right now. And AGI doesn't necessarily have that problem either, right? Like because it's less tied to a particular body, its empathy and compassion don't have to be so tied to their spatial location and whoever has had a similar life experience to them or something, right? So I think there's strengths that come from that difference, but there's also a weakness that comes from that difference. And it will be interesting to see how that pans out in the coming years and decades, right?
But it can be also simpler than this in a way, because Daryl mentioned and his strengths within the conversation, and we can have conversations with AI. Yes, we already are having conversations with the GPTs and so on and so forth. So the question is, can we actually embed those tricks? I do not know if they are tricks. So Daryl, you have to tell us a bit more. Maybe you want to give us an example or
Well,
something from which we can learn to design such
so we can
conversations.
have great conversations with an AI. If you go back in the history of Buddhism,
Curiosity driven. Yes.
if you go back in the history of Buddhism, you had this so-called wordless transmission where the Buddha handed a flower to someone in the audience, and in the receipt of that flower, he received all the wisdom of Buddhist enlightenment, right? Because there was a shared moment around the handoff of that flower, and there can be moments in a music performance that have that aspect also, right? It's not a flower, but it's a bit of sound transmitted by two bodies in the same room being being vibrated by those sound waves, right? So that more interesting to me is these nonverbal, like soul communications. Like, can you have that with an AGI as a human? Because it's quite clear that you can have a great conversation with an AI, right?
I think the soul connection that you're talking about, that comes later. That comes when you find commonality with the person that you're talking about.
You found this with 200 clan entrenched clan members. And yes, you mentioned it was over several years, but still, I think it's amazing. So, do you
Well,
recognize
now,
upfront
s-
how who you should go to,
some
or how?
some of those are direct, me directly. Others are indirectly, because these people are followers. All right, they want to belong to something. They some of them may be outcast from wherever, and they want a sense of belonging. And the Klan brings them in. They brainwash them as a cult, you know, and so they feel that they're respected. They belong. They have a position. They have a place. Um, it's the wrong place, right? But at least they feel wanted, and so that's what they're looking for. Um, and so then when one of them leaves because of me or something like that, the ones that they are friends with, sometimes they feel that connection. They leave because their friend leaves. They join because their friend joined. So that's what I'm saying. So of the 200 or more, now more, um, some of them are direct, some of them are indirect.
Yeah, so what I mean, what I wanted to ask also Ben now is because so it was not soul connection up front, but through some conversation, just to at least challenge why do they believe in let's say belonging to that wrong, yes, group, and Daryl through conversation got them interested in maybe digging more. So that's what I'm asking. Do you think with AI, with AGI, we could deploy such conversations to stir humanity out of the wrong pot and into the loving one?
Well, I mean, it's like, well, like with human beings, right? You find, if you connect with somebody, whether you're going to go into a partnership with them in business, um, or whether it's a relation, a love relationship, something like that, right? You see somebody, I really like this person, and I want to, spend more time with this person or whatever. Um, as you get closer and closer to making that business commitment or that love commitment, whatever, there comes a point where you step back and say, you know, okay, do I really want to do this and commit 100% to this? Do I want to think about this for a little bit? You know, you you step back and you evaluate your life. Um, because you realize you're getting ready to get into something, that's going to take a lot of commitment. Will the AI step back and assess it? Or is it going to make a snap decision? Oh, we have all had this in common, so we put it together and boom.
Ben, you are
You know,
on the
is it
spotlight.
is it going to evaluate, is this something that I really want to do?
Yeah, I mean, human minds evolved a certain way, and then we can bring ourselves beyond our evolved reflexes through a lot of self work, right? On the other hand, AGI isn't just one kind of mind, it's a broad class of types of mind, and you can build a lot of kinds of AGIs. So, I mean, I think we could architect AGIs that are very wise and reflective, right? But it's a matter of it depends on how you architect it. But I mean, I think a well architected AI mind can have a much easier time taking a step back and reviewing each decision in perspective. I mean, the reason we don't do that reliably is because of our emotional makeup, is because we evolved we evolved to often need to make snap decisions, right? Like some tiger is jumping at you, you got to make a snap decision. I mean, we evolved to some extent even for like hand-to-hand combat against other people and so forth. And so then we have this control problem of like when do we let these emotional reflexes take over, or but we don't have to build an AI to have those emotional reflexes in the first place, right? Like it doesn't have to overcome these problems because it's not evolved with them from the get-go. Like you could literally just program an AGI like, A, evaluate, are you in a literal emergency? B, if you're not in a literal emergency, then don't make a snap decision, but trigger this deep reflection process before making a decision, right? I mean, then
Yeah, but how long do we reflect before we go to instinct?
well, how long does a human reflect
Okay,
before they go to instinct is something that's out of control for most people, and only after long reflection and self work can you even bring that into some sort of conscious understanding, right? Whereas for an AI, it doesn't have to be that way because they don't have any instinct in the first place, right? So I mean,
right. So we had to somehow, and I guess it's not going to happen overnight, but maybe in decades, or maybe as you point out, 4 or 5 years, where AI can sense fear, can sense somebody is lying to me. They have some voice stress analyzer built
yeah,
in, or some
it's
kind of type of
probably better at
polygraph,
that than
or they read the body language.
people are already. To be honest, just
Yeah.
identifying the sentiment of someone who's communicating with them.
So,
Can I just
like,
mention something? Because Daryl, in your book, yes, you describe hatred as stemming from fear of the unknown and from fear, And this is a very good point that you are raising here, because the question in this day and age is that people fear the AI and AGI itself, you know, and for
Yeah.
similar reasons, and they can have similar reactions. And that's why they start to hate
Is
AI,
that is that
AGI, and
well,
so
yeah,
on,
but
and
yeah,
these
yeah,
is that
reactions.
is that
they fear what they
is
don't
that is that is
understand.
that my book, or is that from Star Wars? I don't know. Like ig,
That is from
ignorance
his
leads to
book.
fear,
No,
fear leads to anger, and anger leads to the dark
yes.
side, right?
Right,
Both
exactly.
converge, as I mentioned, not only in music, but also in your thinking and approaches. Exactly, exactly.
Well, it's like, you're a musician. You're a musician. So let's say, we have songs that we play note for note. We don't deviate. Like, if you have the sheet music to, let's say, Beethoven's Fur Elise, you're gonna play da 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 da, or whatever, and we're reading it right off the thing. But then if somebody says, okay, play those same chords and create a melody or create something else based on that, we can think, we can improvise, we can use a mode, a scale, whatever, or whatever we feel. um, the AI can take scales and pick random notes and make something within that framework. But if we said, okay, I want this to sound sad, is the AI going to just play a minor chord, or is
No,
it going to bend the
actually,
note?
so that's an interesting question, but it's not quite the right question. So, in fact, the way modern AI models would address that is they just look at all the songs on the internet that have been described as sad by anyone in some comment. Then they build a model of what combinations of factors in the music make something sound sad based on everything that millions or billions of things people have described as sad. And so it's not nearly as simple as just a minor chord. And I think that within a known genre on which there are many examples, an AI can do just as good a job of generating something that sounds sad as almost any human musician. The interesting limitation of current AIs, I think, is as follows. If you took a current AI music model and trained it on all music up to the year 1900, it would be able to generate competent compositions from every genre that existed up to the year 1900, it is never going to invent neoclassical metal, hip hop, grindcore, let alone Duke Ellington, right? Because these are not just permutations on what existed up to the year 1900. Like they, in a sense, jazz emerged from Western classical music and West African rhythm put together, but not just putting together on the surface level, right? I mean, it was a much deeper sort of emergence and fusion. So what when you know you've gotten to a real musical AGI is when the AI invented its own totally different genre of music expressing its own life experience, right? And what's fascinating there is that might sound like noise to you and me because it reflects the AGI's life experience, which may happen on a different time scale than we perceive. It might have 100 voices in a kind of fugue, which we just can't hear with with our ears, right? But that would be what smelled like AGI to me, like in the domain of music. And again, I don't see why an AI couldn't do that. If you look in what the music industry wants out of AI, why do they care about that, right? What they care about is like Spotify would rather not pay the pittance that they pay the human musicians now. They'd rather reduce that even closer to zero by having AI just generate boring retreads of the music that's already on there, right? And
And we're gonna see that like in
yeah,
licensing. Why should somebody call us to compose a underscore for a movie when the director can say, you program AI and say, I need this kind of music for this scene, and boom, it creates it, and you don't have to pay these musicians to give them royalties, et cetera, et cetera.
yeah, and it's also interestingly convenient, right? Like if you have say you have a video game and you want a piece of music that sounds a bit like Spangle or something, but it gets exciting exactly when this fight scene happens, and it gets mellow exactly when the character is walking through an empty field or something like it. Indeed, it may not be economical to pay a human to make music for each possible combination of events that could happen in a game, but like with an AI, you could have the AI compose music customized for the flow of the video game that a given player happens to be experiencing in that game, right? So there's quite interesting possibilities there. Like imagine you're walking down the street with headphones and an AI generates a musical soundtrack to your own life, right? Like someone calls you and says something disturbing, and you get soothing music, or you're running, you want something cool, it just generates exciting music that automatically calms down when you get to the street corner and need to pay attention, right? So I mean, there's certainly cool stuff you could do there that no one could afford to have human musicians do, and it makes sense to have humans do it. And then there's stuff that's just pointless. Like, why do we want to pay AIs to compose music that people can compose and will enjoy composing, and people need to get paid anyway? But
Well, I mean, it's this. How old are you?
I'm
They don't mind my
58.
asking. Okay, so I'll be 67 in a couple weeks. But we grew up with when I would go to hear a band and I heard strings. I look at the band, I see people doing this. Or I hear horns, I see people doing this.
Yeah, yeah.
Today they're doing this, playing the keyboard, right? You know, the synthesizers, there no string section on stage with the band and no
Well,
horn
if you
section
if you if you
sometimes.
go see a symphony, they still have humans
Well, yeah, the
playing
symphony.
wooden
Yeah.
instruments and stuff. Yeah,
Right,
but
the orchestra, sure.
yeah, yeah.
But like, but like a top 40 band, or a rock and roll band, they have keyboard players, synthesizing the horns
We
unless they
we
can
we
afford
we
a
we
whole
ha
horn
we have
section.
a we have an amazing saxophone player in our band, actually. She's
I do
playing it.
too, but only one.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Right.
But so, young people, I mean, you're old enough, like, if you listen to the top 40 song on the radio, you can tell, that's not a real drummer. That's a drum machine,
True.
or
Yeah.
that's a synthesized string. But young people cannot hear that because they did
True.
not grow up with the real instruments. They're used to
Yeah.
hearing, fake instruments. So is that where we're going to get to the point with AI, where the real thing is no longer real, And so then if you have AI, okay, let's say this. Let's say if I have AI and you have AI and we're using the same AI, like Chat GPT, for example. I'm just saying a name because I don't know a whole lot of names. But and some movie producer, some music supervisor wants a certain kind of music for a particular scene. He gives us the exact description of what he wants, and you read it into your Chat GPT, and I read it into my Chat GPT. The exact wording. Is your AI and my AI going to produce the exact same music, or is it going to be different? So how do we compete with one another?
Well,
What
no, not not even now, because these models are personalized, and I mean, they can. I mean, if you literally just go to ChatGPT website, it's not personalized. But I mean, you can have an AI assistant right now that knows who you are and what you like, and it has a certain history, right? So, and it will do something
Mhm.
different based on its knowledge
So then
of
if
you.
you
So
if
I
you
mean,
submit
that's already the case right now.
uh-huh. So then you would submit your sample based on the AI that would have produced, and I would present my sample, and then the person looking for it would have to decide which one he or she likes better.
Yeah, yeah, it's right. Or have their have their AI twin decide for them, right?
Did you ever are you familiar with a old TV show from the 1960s called The Twilight Zone?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Of course. I was that was still on heavy rotation in the '70s when I was a kid. So yeah,
A lot of it is exactly what he's saying, and this came out in 1963. This episode that I'm talking about, where they had created this robot, and the more the robot interacted with this human, the more human the robot became.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I think I saw that episode as a little kid, although it was the original Star Trek, which I saw the first robot on TV, and that started me thinking in this direction. But yeah, these ideas were around back then, of course. But so going go, going back to music and ancient history, actually, your comments about electronic instruments and so on made me think of a song from probably it was 1980 from Rush, one of the bands I grew on. Right, they had the song the spirit of radio. You probably remember that one, like uh, all this machinery making modern music can still be open hearted. It's not so coldly charted. It's really just a matter of your honesty. Yeah, your honesty, right? So I mean, that was right when synthesizers were starting to take over from electric guitars as the number one instrument. On the other hand, I mean, if you go back a couple decades, people thought the electric guitar wasn't a real instrument either because it's electric and not acoustic. And indeed, like Django Reinhardt had a kind of expression that no one could get with an electric guitar. So I mean, I sort of agree with Neil Peart from Rush who wrote that lyric. Like I mean, if there's a mind with honesty of expression, it doesn't matter if you're pounding on a drum machine or on a drum kit or on the skin from some animal that you killed. I mean, you're getting different ways of expressing your integrity. But I would say current AI music models do not have that honesty at all, right? I mean, current AI models are just outright plagiarists who are programmed to be outright plagiarists. But it's not that you couldn't build an AI with honesty, just like an honest creative expression out of its own experience. Is just not what the world is building right now. And I mean, in my own AI projects, we're trying to build AIs with empathy and with self-understanding and curiosity and honesty and integrity. And it's hard. It's not necessarily any harder than building AIs that are plagiarists and building AIs that are exploiting people. It's just, on the whole, our society puts less money behind honesty, integrity, empathy, and curiosity than behind imitation and exploitation.
Okay, so let's say, for example, okay, now, we have scales, right? We have a major scale, we have a minor scale, we have a chromatic scale, we have the blues scale with the flat third, flat fifth, flat seven, all that. And then you have people like BB King, who plays the blues. He may play a scale, but then he'll bend the note.
Yeah.
You know? And that note cannot be written
No,
on the staff. It comes from the heart, not from the
but
chart, So
you know what I bought last year though? I bought a keyboard which is called the Seaboard by a company called Roly. It's a keyboard with like five-dimensional polyphonic aftertouch. You can bend each note on the piano keyboard. So it's quite interesting. Like the you can't do that on a piano, right? So the
right.
technology technology definitely opens up new avenues for expression. I mean, just
Yeah,
like
because we have those tone wheels, wow, wow,
yeah,
wow,
yeah. So
pitch shifters.
you have the pitch bend, but this is like it's multiple dimensions of pitch bend on each note separately, right? So you can do different pitch bend with each finger while you're playing a chord. So I mean, just like the move to electric guitar. I mean, like Hendrix figured out you can get feedback going between the guitar and the amp, and then you're getting like a whole different palette of tones to play with. Similarly, like this seaboard instrument gives you a whole different palette of things to play with a keyboard instrument. So I mean, the technologies, they squelch some older ways of self-expression, but they bring out newer ways of self-expression. And I mean, drum machines are totally like that too. Like the emotions you could get in hip hop or you could get in psytrance for something out of a drum machine. I mean, these are different emotions than you got from human drums. I mean, you may empathize with them more or less, but it's like a different feeling. Like my oldest son spends weeks every year going to psytrance festivals in Europe, right? And that there's an emotion there you get, especially on appropriate chemical alteration. But I mean, there's an emotion there that you get, which is because of what the drum machine is doing at an insane number of beats per second, right? And you're not getting that from human drummers, but it affects the human brain in a certain way. So I think it's not that the technology itself moves us away from honest, open expression and from building music that emotionally reaches out from one person to another. Like the technology could be used to open hearts or to close off hearts, right? It's just how does the economy that drives so much of society, how does that direct these technologies, which is often not in a humanly beneficial way?
So do you think if you want an AI to, say, create a guitar solo in the style of BB King, is it gonna know which notes to bend or which
Yeah.
notes not to bend or
Yeah, yeah,
whatever?
yeah. If I definitely like if I trained a custom AI model on all of BB King's recordings and use that to condition music gen or some AI model, it will know that. It will do that right. But on the other hand, if you trained it all on all music up to Hendrix, it will
Mhm.
never invent Purple Haze. And if you train it on all music up to Van Halen, it will never invent Eruption, right? Because those
Right,
things were like going beyond what was in the training data. But I
right.
mean, if you fed it on BB King's albums, it can be a derivative BB King as well as a really good BB King cover band or something, right? So I mean, that
Mhm.
which is impressive and cool, but yet also limited.
So it kinda it's sort of like, like Google Voice, or Siri or whatever, it recognizes you. The more you talk to it, the more it recognizes your voice. And or like you remember dragon typing?
Yeah,
You
yeah,
talk and
Dragon
it starts
Dictate,
typing.
but we're way beyond that now, right? But yeah, I do remember that. Yeah.
I'm still there. But yeah, I mean, is it so the more you talk, the more the dictating learns the pattern of your
Yeah,
voice, the tone.
exactly. Except now people have fed in every fucking thing on the internet into it, right? So
Yeah.
there's been a lot to learn from, which couldn't be done back in the old days of Dragon Dictate and such. Right?
Could I use music to restore the values for humanity? Because music is such a powerful tool. I mean, I know that definitely as you didn't use music, as far as I understand, Daryl. Although my initial question was if you used also your art in melting the hearts of those who you
Well,
converted
yeah, I
out.
mean, everybody likes music, whether you're black, white, Jewish, Christian, atheist, white supremacist, black supremacist, whatever. Everybody likes music. And because, if you go to a computer company party, most of the people there are gonna be somewhat computer related, right? IT, hardwares, computer sales, programmers, software, whatever. They're all gonna be computer related. You go to a banking party where the bank throws a party, they're gonna be bank tellers, branch managers, auditors, bank tellers, etcetera. But if you go to a concert or a nightclub where there's music, everybody's gonna be there. The teacher, the garbage man, the restaurateur, the whatever. They're all gonna be there together. And they all come from different backgrounds, different socioeconomic statuses. But you play that one song, you know, if it's a rock and roll concert, I mean, there's certain songs that everybody gets up and dances to.
Yeah, and
You play,
people reliably love music made by social groups they think they hate. Also, right? I mean,
yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
And that's why a lot of musicians, or actors or whatever, but a lot of musicians, don't express their personal beliefs because they know they have fans on both sides. Now, unless they specialize in protest songs, like a Bob Dylan, okay, he's known for his protests for human rights or against the war in Vietnam, or whatever. So he has a whole following that comes just for that. But most, like, do you know what Madonna or, thinks, or Lady Gaga thinks of Donald Trump or of Joe Biden or, whoever? You may
Yeah,
not
yeah,
know
yeah.
these
No, no,
things.
that's right. I mean, I had a hard time listening to Ted Nugent after he became such a right wing gun nut, right? But it's
I
still
play
an
I played with
amazing
him
guitar player. But yeah, yeah,
I played with him one time, and, amazing guitar player,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, and, but, he kinda went off the
yeah,
rails.
yeah,
So I stopped listening to him.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's. I mean, I still like it when I hear it, but I don't go out of my way to listen to him now.
Right.
And that is. He put himself out there pretty hard with his politics. I think. Yeah, I think, Mahela, part of what we're trying to play with our own band is incorporating AI music and the robots singing in a way that's like emotionally wrapped up with human expression. And as I think if that happens more and more, then music becomes a way to sort of express that humans and AIs can create together and work together. Whereas if AI in music is basically being used to steal money from human musicians by plagiarizing their style and offering derivative songs to corporations at a discount. I mean that then AI for music is basically being used to alienate people from technology. So it seems important. It's great to the extent that AI tools can be used to drive home a message of unity and cooperation between people and AIs. And this is not exactly what's happening now, but it's still early stage, right? Like I met through Nefertiti, the rapper, who's a friend of mine and works with Singularity.
Yes, another
We met
musician. Yeah.
yeah, you know Nef. So we met Jerobi from a tribe called Quest, who's mostly doing DJing stuff now, but he's super interested in using AI just to give DJs more things that they can do in real time during a set, right? So I mean, if you're using, on the other hand, I saw in San Francisco someone set up like literal military killer robot to do a DJ set on the dance floor. Now, both of these things are good fun. On the other hand, programming a killer robot to be an okay DJ, it's a gimmick. It's a cool gimmick. It doesn't really get you anywhere. Like
But to
helping
me, it
Jerobi.
gives no. To me, I think this is the ultimate. Is what Daryl was doing. I see it as deprogramming from the killer to humanity, and this is what Daryl was
Well,
doing in his work. This is how I see it. That's
mm,
why I think I would definitely embrace that approach. That's
well,
how I see it. So,
it is cool. It's cool. I think what Jerobi wants to do is even cooler because the AI and the human are working together in real time to deliver an experience to other
and to
people,
deliver
and
an experience, not to kill. So that's completely different. Yes.
that is definitely true. I think both of them are cool, and they're involving AI in giving people a positive emotional like experience of togetherness. I think
Exactly. Exactly.
what Jerobi is aiming for, and we talked about, is even cooler. And the AI tools and him as a human DJ are like having a meeting of the minds on stage, and then when they perceive how the audience on the dance floor is feeling, then both the human and the AI can adjust with what they're doing to that, right? And that's that sort of feedback where AI and human together are responding to the human audience, like in real time. That's like a shared mind and feeling space among human bodies and
Okay,
ears and
so
the AI, right? And that's with drum machines and electronic music, right? But
so that's what I
it's still
do.
quite cool.
Yes,
So
Daryl.
when a lot of bands, have a set list, and they stick to the set list. You every song in order, they don't deviate, you know. Um, I never use a set list unless I'm playing some, corporate gig or a wedding where they want, the
Yeah.
father-daughter dance at a certain time, that's fine. But when I'm out in the club or a festival or whatever, I don't use a set list. I'm I've played long enough that I can read my audience. I know what's being reacted. I can keep the energy. I can bring them up. I can bring them down, etc. I'm pretty good at that. But can AI? How is AI going to read the audience and know when to slow it down or pick it up or whatever?
Honestly, I think that's pretty easy for AI
Okay,
to do now if you have a video feed of the audience. I
audience.
mean, in a way, yeah. I mean, in fact, like the AI can see the audience better than the human musicians often can with lights and stuff for that matter. And I mean, you can
Hmm.
see if people are talking to each
People
other,
are
or going to get
bopping.
drinks when you play a slow song, or if when you're playing something with a lot of
Right.
energy, they're jumping up and down, and they're touching their boyfriend or girlfriend's arm or something. I think
Uh huh.
this sort of thing is not so hard for an AI to detect. What you would want to do is, I think it wouldn't even need a lot of training data for that. You could probably do that now just based on a video feed and prompts fed to an LLM. Although on the other hand, we don't need AI to do that if you have human musicians on stage because you can do it anyway, right? But
Hmm.
I think an AI could solve that problem, and that would be interesting. I mean, in a way, it would mean you could automate a dance floor, and you could automate what many DJs do, right? So, I mean, again, the best DJs are having a certain intuition and artistry that I think an AI probably couldn't equal now, but vast majority of DJs, I actually think an AI could probably do a better job of that than than what they're doing. So but that's now an AI couldn't invent DJing and the whole art form there though, right? I mean that's again that's a level of AGI that we're not at now. Right?
Yeah, it was you
I
see,
got a lot to learn.
more than it's beyond AI and beyond
Now, Ben,
deprogramming. So in clothing, of course, I mean that you shared so much. You have so much in common besides music and the love for humanity. Um, and I have learned a lot actually from Daryl's insights in the conversation with you, Ben. But in the end, I have a question, which is maybe not a question, like what would be from this the takeaway for us for the beneficial general intelligence movement, in your opinion? And any one of you can start from this conversation. What can we learn in order to build a better future with the super intelligences? Are you positive? Are you skeptical? I have seen Ben more optimistic than even me on this conversation. And
I'm hopeful. I'm positive. I think AI is a wonderful thing. I think it can do a lot of things, but what I would like to see it do eventually is be able to teach human beings to do what it does. Can AI find the best shortcuts to become a mathematical genius, to become a better piano player, whatever. Can it take all the lessons from different teachers, the Suzuki method, this method, that method, and say this is the best way to learn this or whatever? Can it teach us weaklings or us, not as intelligent as the AI to advance our own intelligence?
or how you negotiate, for example, like can it train us to step back, to be patient, to involve those values which you used in your strategy here. Yeah.
Mine just comes from spending all day long playing that piano.
Hey, Ben, what do you have to say? Because you know
I
about
think I
playing that as well.
Yeah, actually, I've even got a crappy little
There you go.
MIDI
Yeah.
controller right here in my office. But
Because he showed
yeah,
his piano, so now you have to show
yeah. Well,
that you are
that's
real.
not one of my more interesting keyboards, but it happens to be sitting in the office here. Yeah. I think indeed AI for personalized tutoring and instruction can be super valuable and not necessarily replacing humans teaching other people, but it's a fascinating supplement. I mean, more powerful than books or current educational software. AI, I think, due to its personalized nature and the fact that it can learn who you are and what you need to know and what need to practice in that moment. I mean, I think AI could be very helpful in education. I think the main positive message I get from hearing more about Daryl's experience is just that if people approach each other in a sort of open-minded, open-hearted, and curious way, and with a little bit of patience, then the boundaries between people may be a bit less rigid than they seem at first. And this is important to remember because I think the biggest risk we face from AI is just oppositions between people turning into oppositions between AIs, right? And if people could work out their own shit and we get a more unified, coherent space of human values to pass on to the AI, it's going to work out a lot better. I mean, if you take the analogy of human parents and kids, if the parents are constantly fighting with each other and don't understand each other at all, I mean, somehow this gets passed on to the kids, and the kid may become tormented and have a lot of stuff they have to get over in their life. if the parents can listen to each other and hear each other and understand each other and work out their differences, they're more likely to pass along a sort of coherent mindset and value system to the kid. And the same sort of thing I think holds with our AI mind children that we're giving birth to and instructing. So certainly if more people could follow the kind of modus operandi that you did, Daryl, in your Klan whisperer work, just in everyday life, not even in such a dramatic setting, right? I mean, I think certainly that would put humanity in a better position to be giving rise to this new species of minds that can then teach us, help with us, and create abundance for us. So that there's a message of hope for our birthing of the next intelligent species in Daryl's book, I would say.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And really,
Thank you.
I invite everybody to read Daryl's book, The Clan Whisperer. I got at the LibertyCon, I got the last hard copy. So you guys, you may get the soft copies, and that's fine with me.
All right.
So and also read also Ben's book, The Consciousness Explosion, which explain actually how to design those empathic, loving AGI. Thank you both so much for your
There
time.
we
And
go.
yes, exactly.
The
Here it
consciousness
is.
explosion.
The
The conscious explosion.
consciousness
Okay.
All
explosion.
right.
I will send you, Daryl, the link to the book as well.
Okay, please.
So you can find online, guys. So thank you again, Daryl. Thank you, Ben. That was a fascinating conversation and starter for our AGI series. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.